Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled Board of Directors meeting from Marin Water. Today is Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. Terry, if I could have a roll call, please.
Director Diana Mayer, Director Larry Russell,
Here.
Vice President Jed Smith,
Here.
and President Matt Sampson.
Here. Do we have any public comment on adoption of the agenda?
There are none.
Can I motion to adopt the agenda, please?
Oh, so moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Director Mayer,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Vice President Smith,
Aye.
President Sampson.
Yes. Do we have any public comment on our closed session item tonight?
There are none.
Okay, we'll go ahead and adjourn to closed session.
Thank you.
6:40 with no reportable action, and I appreciate the public's patience as we went over just a little bit. Thank you. Moving on to public comment on non-agenda matters.
Yes, we have several. The first speakers are Phil Sauter, Martha Davis, and Larry Minikis.
Good evening. I watched the last Finance Committee recording and was glad to see the sales by tier data become available. It provides a lot of good information that will be useful as the district decides how to keep conservation at the top of our water supply alternatives, or whether to run expensive pipelines from the north or address flooding issues in Nicasio as a precursor to enlarging the reservoir. It was no surprise that 70% of our water use occurs in Tier 1, where customers pay 1.2 cents a gallon and must average less than 184 gallons a day. Another 13% of usage occurs in Tier 2, where customers pay 1.6 cents a gallon and must average no more than 300 gallons a day. Another 14% of usage occurs in Tier 3, where customers pay 2.6 cents a gallon and must average less than 1,000 gallons a day. And a little less than 3% of our water use occurs in Tier 4, where customers pay about 4 cents a gallon and can use more than 1,000 gallons a day with no upper limit. We've heard stories of Tier 4 customers with $14,000 bi-monthly water bills. To get there, they'd have to use 5,000 gallons of potable water a day average for 61 days. Most of that potable water is going into the ground, and that's not something a drought-sensitive water district wants to see, nor do the majority of our customers who top out at 184 gallons a day. I was impressed by the approach the district took in implementing the last rate increase. Baking in predictable annual rate adjustments was a great idea, but I don't think there was a similar approach for adjusting tier levels over time. And optimizing the tiers has implications not only for extending our water supply, but financial implications as well. I put together a spreadsheet using current rates for each tier and assuming our current 5 billion gallons annually for residential users. I started with a current Tier 1 share at 70%, Tier 2 at 13%, Tier 3 at 14%, and Tier 4 at 3%. The sales revenue for those current numbers came out to $77 million. When I made small changes to the share by tier numbers and assumed 60% for Tier 1, 20% for Tier 2, 15% for Tier 3, and 5% for Tier 4, revenues went up by nearly $5 million a year. And when I adjusted the share by tier to 50% for Tier 1, 25% for Tier 2, 15% for Tier 3, and 10% for Tier 4, revenues went up by more than $12 million a year. I hope tier levels can be adjusted as we learn more about the increased expense of supporting users in the wasteful tiers. In the meantime, I'd like to suggest that usage by tier numbers become front and center on our customer website and mailings. It would be good for all customers to see the information that Brett provided and understand where they fit on the responsible versus wasteful continuum. Thank you.
You have to have it read, Martha. Almost. You're almost there. There we go.
There.
You know my nickname's Wrong Way Davis, right? For hiking, though. Good evening. My name is Martha Davis, and I serve on the board of the Nicasio Landowners Association, as you know. I came here today personally to thank you, Board Member Sampson and Board Member Cush, and the staff for the productive meeting our Nicasio community had on June 26th. And we just really appreciate the time that all of you took to meet with us. It was a very long meeting and I think a very productive one. However, I am aware that as of this afternoon, there is considerable consternation among Nicasio residents. I see you nodding your head, so you know what I'm going to raise. That because Marin staff failed to follow the protocol published on your website for requesting permission to enter private property and to conduct surveys. I want to be clear that the fact that the surveyors entered private property this afternoon without permission or even notification to the landowners is unacceptable. The fact that this work was being conducted during the third public workshop on the spillway modification project, it just makes it tone deaf. I don't care who is responsible for this misstep, but when Ruth and I have an opportunity to meet with your staff next week, we have a monthly meeting, I'd like to know that the problem has been taken care of and to hear more about just the steps that will be taken to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Finally, I provided comments this afternoon in the scoping workshop on the 2017 bathymetric survey of Nicasio Reservoir. There is not time for me today to repeat my comments here, but the gist of it is that I'm requesting that Marin Water redo or at least update the 2017 bathymetric survey because the study failed to collect or did not include data reflecting the margin of the Nicasio Reservoir between the 165 and the 170-foot contour elevation on Nicasio and Halleck Creeks. This information was collected everywhere else on the margin of the Nicasio Reservoir except Nicasio and Halleck Creeks. This is another big miss. Without this data, Marin Water cannot accurately calculate the stage volume curves for the Nicasio Reservoir, nor reliably estimate the average and dry year water yields that Nicasio Reservoir provides to the district. As you know, the dry year yield is one of the critical metrics in your decision-making process on whether to go forward on the proposal to raise Nicasio Dam. It is also vital to constructing accurate inundation and flooding maps that cover both the current conditions that we've been seeking, as well as the inundation and flooding impacts related to the proposed project. Thank you.
Mr. Minikis, and then Monica Siebold and Michael Siebold.
Yeah, good evening. So this is a comment that's been waiting 2 weeks to be made. What I want to do is thank the directors for your reports 2 weeks ago. I was on my cell and I had my hand raised, but when it was time to speak, it was gone. So I didn't get the opportunity. I thought it was very complete. You gave tremendous information. Ranjiv did a great job on his end too and all. And I was also going to speak to the controlled burn that day and then how nice it was to see smoke. But because it's on the agenda tonight, I will not do so. So that's my comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Siebold, please.
Hello, my name is Monica Siebold. I want to address MMWD, the whole committee this afternoon about the toxic methyl mercury and the greenhouse gas emissions. I'm sure Sean and many of you are aware that submerging soils and vegetation with acres of water will cause an anoxic environment. The shallow, warm, anaerobic environment will allow microbioactivity of sulfate-reducing bacteria. This bacteria will convert inorganic mercury that's present in Nicasio soil into toxic methyl mercury. This surge of mercury lasts for many years to many decades. Methyl mercury is highly neurotoxic and concerning especially is that it crosses placentas to babies. It rapidly concentrates in the food web, and although Nicasio Reservoir has signs warning, I found that MMWD has no data quantities for public record. Marin Sanitary doesn't test for it. The Office of Environmental Health says, eat the good fish, not the bad fish, and that's with mercury and PCBs. So if you're fishing, I guess you bring a magnifying glass and guess which is good and which is bad. The same process of methylation releases the following greenhouse gases: methane, carbon dioxide, and nitrous oxide. You would think decay of plants benign, but a 3,600 acre-foot increase in inundation is equivalent to releasing gases from burning 1.5 million gallons of gasoline a year. This figure includes only the methane, so actual totals may be 10 to 15% higher when adding CO2 and N3O. As I mentioned, this process can persist cumulative for decades. Another way to look at this is the greenhouse gases are equivalent of 16,000 car emissions in a year. it can exceed the amount of discharge from a fossil fuel plant per unit of electricity for a year. I guess those battery-operated chainsaws and leaf blowers of Gavin's aren't so important now. Who worries about car farts in Marin? Will these same people stand up to stop methylation by decay? For MMWD to have an impact on decreasing this additional toxin and massive releases of greenhouse gases, they would need to remove all the vegetation of the surrounding lands and creek sides that will be inundated. That would be a great expense, and they've already stated they don't have the money to pull broom and brush to keep from burning down Nicasio. Aerate the deep water of the reservoir, manage the water levels of the inundation, including limiting the flooding areas with vegetation in warm seasons. But currently, MMWD is flip-flopping on whether this is a wet weather catchment or a holding of ARC water in dry years. In dry weather, if the levels are pumped down, soil's dry, and then the next inundation will surge more gases. Well water will need to be regularly tested for methylmercury as specialty tests.
Thank you, Ms. Siebold. Your time is up. I have to move on to the next speaker. Mr. Michael Siebold.
So I hope you can hear me, but thank you for allowing us to voice our objections to this horrible plan to raise the Nicasio Dam. First, shame on you, MMWD. As a current victim to the yearly flooding in my yard, I find it completely rude that you shun off every and any attempt to fix the current flooding problem. It was clearly evident to Matt Sampson on Ranjiv Kush, the ad hoc committee, as well as General Manager Ben Hornstein, that this flooding problem is going to get worse, using the MMWD language of climate change. The community showed the members dozens of pictures to prove the problematic flooding. I was appalled at Mr. Ben Hornstein's answer at the local meeting held at Nicasio School on June 26. When Mr. Hornstein addressed a question about how the inundation would destroy our current schools well. His cold answer was, we'll just build a new one. The meeting was supposed to be a question and answer, but most residents left with no answers. I have a few more questions for MMWD. Is MMWD going to destroy my land via eminent domain, just as it did the ranchers of Nicasio in the 1960s? It seems like it's easier for MMWD to get a permit to bulldoze and burn homes than it is to get a permit to dredge Nicasio and Halleck Creek. The current LIDAR maps and calculations for the water holding capacity of Nicasio Reservoir are 9 years old. Is MMWD going to redo those maps and calculations? Let's be clear that this reservoir holds 1,700 less acre feet of water than it used to. I've been reviewing countless MMWD records. In the requested documents, the recorded minutes show very precise notes, even documenting pay raises and pipe purchases. I find it odd that there is not a single note that mentions any Nicasio Reservoir or Inlet Creek maintenance or upkeep. Seems like MMWD is spending a fair amount of time fighting Nicasio residents. Do they spend as much time or any time fighting their ratepayers to not water their fancy lawns and not fill their fancy swimming pools? In going through this notice of preparation is just optics to appease the people that voted for board members? If it is, be honest. MMWD just dropped this project and save a lot of money. MMWD, you have kicked a hornet's nest. You have two separate issues, one being the inundation of my property and two being the flooding that occurs for most upper Nicasio Creek. Be aware that your crews trespassed on two properties trying to survey. They were thankfully stopped by the homeowners. You again broke the already decayed trust. MMWD agreed to a protocol you did not follow, trespassed, and invaded our properties. Shame on you. Shame on you because you're currently destroying my home value just as we sit and the nature of this proposal exists. Shame on you for destroying the home values of the neighbors. Shame on you for not fixing erosion problems.
Thank you, Mr. Siebold, for your time and your comment. There are no further speakers.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to Director and General Manager's announcements. Director Smith.
Yeah, I just have one. As you all know, for the last 2.5 years plus, I've been working on the Water Advisory Council Committee at Sonoma, and we are moving forward, we hope, with a Marin Sonoma contract that would, I believe, help set our county up and partner with Sonoma for the next 15 years. And I got word that Santa Rosa City Council has voted to support this contract and to recommend that their representative on the WAC move forward with a yes. That's a major move in our direction and a very positive one. And obviously, we need to go through all the other contractors and get final approval from the WAC and Sonoma Water. But great first step. And Ben, thank you for you and Paul and the team for working so hard on this. And I'm sure we'll have more to report in the near future. There's an August 4th meeting for the WAC, and that will be a good milestone for us.
Great. That's great news. Thank you, Jed. Director Russell.
No.
Director Mayer.
None.
Okay. I'd just like to recognize the event that was held on Thursday on the Watershed, the employee recognition event. It was a great atmosphere. Food was great, but it was also really good to see all the employees recognized, from folks that are doing great work here at customer service counter up front, all the ones reporting incidents on the watershed and assisting where possible. It's always great to showcase what's going on out there. So thank you very much for a really good event with that. And then the second item I have, looking at last meeting's agenda, looking at this meeting, then looking forward into August, they all seem incredibly light and doesn't seem timely. So I'd like to see the feasibility of canceling our August meeting, the first meeting in August, and moving those agenda items to the second meeting in August if we could, if it's going to be just a one item meeting, and get your thoughts on that, Ben.
Yeah, as we talked about it, it does make sense to me for a number of reasons. One, it is light. What we had on that meeting was an update on recycling program. There was some interest, and we thought it'd be timely to refresh where we are and talk about the opportunities and some challenges associated with recycling projects. But that's not time sensitive, and that could happen whenever. And the other item, we were going to provide an update on the BAT monitoring as part of the pilots on the watershed. And that too was an update, and there's no impact to delay it. Many agencies in the summertime, August is common, do something like this. My understanding is the county is off all August. No meetings or even committee meetings. So it's and what happens is the supervisor, over time, everyone kind of plans vacations around that time, and you don't have to necessarily miss meetings. So anyway, I think it's a nice idea to try and see how it works, and maybe over time it gets institutionalized like many agencies do.
Okay. And it would not affect the committee meetings we currently have or the outside committee meetings, just be the first meeting in
Right.
August. Okay,
Right.
Great.
Also, just a reminder, Matt, that I am leaving tomorrow for Africa and for 3.5 weeks, and probably won't be able to Zoom in. So, and I would love to catch the recycling update. So
Molly, do you want us to comment, or what's the protocol here?
I think it's appropriate for board members to weigh in if they have questions or concerns, but if there's consensus, I think that we can just take that as direction, and we'll publish a notice of cancellation if that's the direction.
Jed, any comments?
Yeah, I appreciate it. This is the first I heard of it. I think it makes sense. It kind of came to my mind after the last meeting where we went through the backflow discussion, which I thought was super interesting, but not necessarily necessary to bring 5 board members and all the staff into a meeting to have just that one issue. So I'm supportive of being thoughtful about how we consolidate our efforts and time and when we have a meeting. So and that meeting in particular, August 4th, I'm happy to move on from, and I can adjust my plans. So.
Great, thank you. Larry? Sounds good. Okay, I think that's direction enough. Great. We'll move on then to board committee reports. Director Smith, back at you.
None. Thanks.
Director Russell? Director Mayer? Okay, this is a quick one. I still have one.
Planning committee?
The Watershed Association met
Wasn't
last
there
Friday.
a planning committee?
What's that, Jed? Sorry.
I thought there was a planning committee meeting since our last meeting.
No.
It was before.
Yeah,
Oh.
we have one next week. So we did have North Bay Watershed Association. Both myself and Director Russell attended. It was hosted by Central Marin Sanitary. They actually brought in a speaker from Fish Bio, one of the contractors doing a lot of work on the salmon populations in the Central Valley. And it was super interesting. They broke down the predation of salmon returns back to the ocean. They're saying it 96% of the actual hatched salmon that are making their way back to the ocean were eaten by largemouth bass. They found 96% of the babies actually still in the belly of it. So it's really interesting how those two fish interact. And I know that we have some of those potential problems here locally for us. But interesting presentation. August of note is the 25th anniversary of the organization. So probably a little bit bigger meeting, October. And then we were actually solicited for interest on the North Bay Watershed Association's biannual conference in spring of 26 on some of the work we're doing on the watershed lands itself. So we'll have to reach out with staff to see if we can meet that request for that. And that was it.
Larry, did you already talk? We didn't have the North Bay Water Reuse Authority meeting, but I'm just was that before our last meeting? Did you give a summary of what happened there? Or just because it's not very eventful, you're passing on it?
Yeah, it was pretty simple.
Okay.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to the consent items. If I could get a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Director Mayor,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Vice President Smith,
Aye.
President Sampson.
Yes, moving on to item number 9, regular scheduled items. First up is the watershed prescribed burn. Director Horn.
Good evening, board members. Sean Horn, Director of Watershed Resources. I'm joined tonight with Kevin Cook, our heavy equipment operator on the watershed and our technical lead for prescribed fire and pile burning under our BIFIP. So we prepared a presentation this evening for you that we're going to go through to highlight the recently completed project that happened at Knob 2 on the Mount Tam watershed. So the presentation we're going to give, I just want to acknowledge this has been in the making since 2021. I mean, you could say since 2019 when the board adopted the Biodiversity Fires and Fuels Integrated Plan. And there's a tremendous amount of staff work and individuals behind this effort and agency partnerships as well that we're going to try to highlight. But this is a really important step for the district in the implementation of our BIFIP to bring prescribed fire back in a meaningful way. And so we really wanted to highlight it and provide the community with an update on how this project went. So the outline for the presentation this evening, we'll talk about the stewardship actions under the BIFIP, the prescribed burn planning that went in to make this happen, and then interagency coordination, pre-treatment, prescribed burn operations, and just a summary and where we're going. So you all have heard about the BIFIP before, but we do have these kind of drivers of change on the watershed that we're managing under. You know, the removal of fire as a natural process and the suppression activities have changed our landscape. We've had impacts from climate change. We've seen pests and pathogens, most notably in the form of sudden oak death on the watershed, having an impact on some of our hardwood forests. And we've seen invasive plants really change the ecology of our landscape. So under our BIFIP, we have management actions that we're carrying out to address some of these issues. And one of those actions that we've been bringing back is the implementation of prescribed fire. So prescribed burning, the project we're going to talk about tonight is highlighted in this map. We call it Knob 2. This was part of a 240-acre plot that we've been working with the Burn Boss to develop over the last few years. Our natural resource staff really led an effort to identify potential projects like this and the resource objectives that we'd be moving forward with. And so some of those resource objectives relate to reducing fuel loads in the understory. Some of that's a result of some of the sudden oak death that we've talked about, or encroachment of coyote brush or Douglas fir into kind of sensitive grassland habitat. Reducing the grass thatch layer in a strategic way, reduce the encroachment of trees and other into our sensitive meadows was a real key objective of this effort. The initial treatment was carried out here in 2021, and when we talk about that, it included folks going out and hand removing vegetation as well as masticating vegetation. And then there's additional preparation work that was done the weeks leading up to our actual implementation of the prescribed fire. Now, we can't do any of this work without Bay Area Air Quality Management District permits. So we have a long-standing relationship with that agency and have been getting permits to implement our pile burning operations as well as these types of prescribed fires. And we do rely on them to make the call on day of, depending on weather conditions for the area that we're working in. We also have environmental compliance work that goes on ahead of these projects. So in this case, we were doing bird surveys, looking for active nests and coming up with buffers around those, and then rare plants. The one rare plant population that we did have was outside of the project area in this case. In some cases, we can have prescribed fire really improve conditions for our rare plants on the landscape. Now, there's also weather monitoring that we do to make sure that we're in prescription for these burning activities. So leading up to the day of event, we're looking at monitoring fuel moisture, weather, and other site conditions to make sure that we're in prescription. The prescribed burning planning process is, a really stringent one that we do in collaboration with the burn boss, as well as our partners at County Fire, who end up actually implementing the projects. So our comms department helps us with all the communication around these efforts. So we did a really robust initiative the last couple of years when we've been working to implement one of these projects. That includes kind of signage out on the watershed, letting people know what's going on day of. We also developed some messaging that went out on our kind of mutual agency platforms. And so, that happens from our website all the way down to our social media links. We create maps that we can help hand out to visitors in the field so they can understand where the work areas are happening and what areas might be closed. One really unique thing about this project, when we were implementing it this year, we were able to keep Sky Oaks Road open and visitors actually moving through the area as we were doing this work. And that was kind of strategic in helping people see this activity becoming kind of normalized on the watershed. We've been doing that with a lot of our pile burning operations for the last couple of years. And then post-project, we have kind of a what happened here sign that we put out so that folks can better understand the ongoing work. So with that, pre-treatment leading up to it, a really critical component. The map on the right shows all the treatments that we've done under the BIFIP, and then the circle really highlights this Knob 2 area. We went through, day of with partnership with our Fire Foundry crew, as well as Marin County Fire crews, going out and trying to develop our control lines and managing some of the hazardous trees that might be out there, piling brush in areas, creating kind of buffers around some of those nesting locations, and just trying to make this a safe area for us to implement this work. So in terms of implementation, I'm going to hand it to Kevin. He's going to really walk you through what the events on the day of looked like and how we carried out this project.
On here. Thank you, Sean. So yeah, with all that preparation, brings us to the actual burn day. So that all burn days start with a morning briefing, and actually I'd just call it a pre-briefing when all the overhead gets together on a little sidebar, and we went over the burn plan, make sure all the objectives have been met, and make sure all leadership roles are properly assigned. And then it comes to the general briefing where it gets everybody on the same page, and we all go over an IAP and instant action plan. With that, it usually opens up with introductions and roll call. And actually, with the roll call portion being mentioned, all the agencies that participate in this, large force, like Sean said, from Marin County Fire, watershed staff, and Southern Marin brought up an engine, and a couple personnel. Nicasio Fire brought an engine out with 3 personnel, and even Marin County Parks offered up a water tender to assist with water shuttle operations. So once roll call is done, it's kind of an introduction, and everybody gets on the same page, going over the rest of the IAP. You have your safety message, medical plan, comms plan for if things go wrong or when we meet certain points to move forward with the burn. And then what else we have going? We have the weather, our spot weather report. So we have the forecast letting us know what to expect as the day progresses, what fire behavior may do. And then of course a map. The map will kind of show, I think, did you have one up there already, Sean? Okay. They convey where like our test burn will be to see what, the conditions will provide the fuels to burn. And if we want to move forward with the burn, that was conducted in the north end of the unit. So once that briefing is broken out, we go into our divisions, everybody gets their assignments, then they spread along the whole burn site. At that point, final checks are done on equipment. And most importantly, I would say communications are established once everybody's spread out, make sure everybody's on the same frequency, same page. And then most importantly, in this situation, we had Throckmorton's Type 3 engine was our water supply engine, 1565. They were pumping over 4,000-foot hose lay, which went over the ridge down to the shoreline and connected to the road. I know I mentioned Southern Marin's engine 607 was participating. They actually were the active patrol along the roadway. And then as that test fire was conducted, everybody was well, they really liked the production of it. And that test fire location was at the top of the ridge, but also it wasn't just in the grasslands. You can kind of see a photo on the slide here. That's just below the test burn site. It didn't just consume grass, but also did an understory portion. So they kind of got to see a full scope at the top there. That's why they chose that location. But moving forward, everybody liked the test burn. So they went over comms to let everybody know that we're good to go and we like what we're seeing. At that time, what was it, TAM Crew 1 and TAM Crew 3 were the lighting crews. TAM Crew 1 went across the west side, and I'm sorry, Crew 3 went along the west side, 1 went to the east. And what they initially did was, you see some tactics later in photos. For example, the top center photo here on this slide, that fire crew member is actually walking down one of the control lines, but he's lighting right off of it, and they're improving that control line by starting fire right off of it. And then as they monitor the conditions to see how the fire is reacting with the topography of that unit, they can then judge how much more to take as they move through the unit. Another few things to note in these slides, you can see was a lower left. That's actually the test burn. They're just circled around that test burn area. You can kind of see the photos taken under the tree, burning some of the understory and out in the grass. Sean talked about all the amount of prep that was done days and weeks before this burn. That center bottom shot of the you can see a lot more flame lengths on that. Those are more of the dense fuels, the 10 and 100-hour fuels burning. That was done by piling, and you can see the piling was thoughtfully done out in the open. We also talked about some of the other protected resources here. Most important birds. Upper right photo, that little control scratch line you see there is actually around one of the bird nesting sites, and they're closely monitoring that as well. Move forward. So in this shot, you kind of see some more of the resources at work here. Dead center, you see Marin Water's water tender 990. We've had that apparatus probably my whole career here, 22 years, and it is like the lifeblood of our burning program. We use that piece of apparatus every single time we're out burning. It's our portable water tank. And if we don't have enough water and we're a little remote, no hydrants nearby, we pop out, as you see here, the yellow portable tank there. We run shuttle operations to that. And yeah, it was put to work that day and the days after as well. It was a great piece of equipment that's been assigned to multiple task force in Marin County and even called out of county to do resource assistance. I talked about Throckmorton's Type 3 engine. You see just the very back of it there in that center photo too as well. They're drafting out of that portable tank in that shot, and that's Crew 1 bringing fire down around Sky Oaks Road. I also want to give applause to some of the maintenance and ranger staff that were in charge of the traffic control and keeping the lane open. It was a lot of people were coming through that day. There's school groups and other just general visitors. And I also want to applaud the comms department because I think the word got out and everybody was really appreciative. It was really positive from pretty much everybody coming through. Real quick, the photo on the left, that's a test burn site again. And then the one on the right is a shot from Pumpkin Ridge looking back at the burn as it's getting more into the understory out of the grass. And you can see Lake Bontempi right in the background there. This is more post-burn and also day after. A lot of prep was done around the outer edges, but also in the interior. That center photo, you'll see a lot in the black in the foreground. That was where the grass burned quickly. And then the white is where there was mulching done on some of the more green vegetation that was very dense, lots of poison oak, some French and Scotch broom, some other small shrubs. And we got to it quickly days before to do some mulching. It actually cured very quickly. And the burn off, as you can see, it was very good. And it's hopefully going to show some really good post-burn rehab, which I think this landscape, we all know thrives with some fire, and it's some good fire. This photo on the right, that's at the top of the ridge, kind of where a lot of the grassland meets more of the timber. There was a large down tan oak, probably victim to sun oak death. But there was a large jackpot there, and it's just a good example of what the good fire done properly can do to the fuel loading in our environment. It's nearly completely consumed. And talking about the sun oak death, having this good fire in the environment will also help try to cook off some of those pathogens as well. A really good photo. I think our natural resource program manager took the photo of the on the upper left of Mount Tam in the background. You can see the grassland burned off, and now it's smoldering down into the timber. It's just a really good picturesque shot. Yeah, and lower left, that's one of the Tam crews getting ready to do further containment on the burn. Day one, our goal was 100 foot in off the fire line for the night, and then monitor any other special hazards. And then moving forward, day two, they wanted a goal of 300 feet, which they achieved, and then did beyond that. So that's what that crew is waiting to do down below.
And I just note that that partnership with our with Marin County Fire is just critical. I mean, they bring resources to the day to help us burn. They bring the burn boss, and then this is day after them helping us mop up, and the staffing capacity is just expanded immensely with them involved.
Yes, definitely. So I kind of touched on mop up. So yeah, day one, goal was 100 foot off the control line. It was achieved pretty easily. Addressed some other snags and other hazards that came up as fire moved through the landscape. But it was a very, very successful burn. Everybody was pleased, from Marin County Fire to the public, Water District staff. Everybody was really pleased. And then we did final later checks. We waited an hour and did another walkthrough with County Fire, just make sure all burning materials, well within the burn and safe. Moving to the night, we had Water District staff and contract forestry company, Biswell Forestry. They provide 5 personnel and an engine to help assist with patrols. And they did so also in day 2 as well. We continue to monitor it for 2 24-hour shifts following that initial burn day. Like the slide says, also TAM crew returned the second day, actually with 4 crews. It just kind of illustrates that commitment that Marin County Fire, has to us to help support our efforts, and also the Fire Foundry. The Fire Foundry actually has been a great help through our whole pile burning process and prescribed fire. They've really been a big supporter of our efforts throughout all burning seasons.
Great. So in terms of the burning happening, I think we need to just acknowledge that the board's approved contracts with forestry companies that have helped us implement this. The board has approved contract or agreements with Marin County Fire to support this kind of activity on the watershed. Watershed staff are actively planning for future burns and doing the implementation preparation that's necessary, as well as the resource surveys to ensure that we're in compliance with our BIFIP document. So there's just a tremendous amount of work that goes in before a burn even happens. And to summarize kind of where we're going from here now, we do have other burn plans developed already for the watershed, and we're looking forward to implementing those through our partnerships that we've developed. We're using some of our fire pathway modeling that we presented a few meetings ago to help us refine our BIFIP treatments and help us kind of identify long-term areas where prescribed burning can be used as a maintenance tool to help us kind of maintain the benefits of our initial treatments on the watershed and reduce those risks. And then really where we're growing and building is in that continuous cross-jurisdictional planning and implementation. So recently there was a grant application that the One TAM partners put into the Natural Resource Division of the state that has CAL FIRE, Forest Health, Wildlife Conservation Board, under it on the order of about $28 million to look at kind of regional projects here in Marin County to implement more forestry work as well as prescribed fire. That came with funding to support our partners at Fire Foundry and Marin County Fire as well. So there's a lot of work going on in the background to help us kind of lift up our capacity here locally to do more of this work. And I think the watershed's really leading the effort here and is a great kind of ground for more of this work. And, you know, we're really appreciative that we have people like Kevin and other watershed staff that have the capabilities to implement this work in partnership with our Marin County Fire. So with that, we'll take any questions that you might have on the project.
Kevin and Sean, thank you very much for the presentation and for all the interesting pictures as well. We'll start with board member comments. Director Smith.
Yeah, all good. Thank you so much for the report. At some point, it'd be great to look at the history of burns and impact and trends. But obviously, we're moving in the right direction. I'm super appreciative and supportive. Thank you.
Director Russell.
Nice job.
Director Mayer.
Yeah, just thank you. Great news. And I guess wildfire is to California what floods are in Texas. So I'm really, it's just really nice to see that we're doing what we can to ameliorate what the impact might be of a wildfire. So thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. You know, I'll keep it short tonight because I've shown the appreciation in the past few meetings, but I think, you know, continuing to remind us about the amount of effort it goes into just to be able to pull off what you did for one day is Herculean at this point, based on how far we are behind the curve, but as well as how far behind we are in putting fire on the ground again. So thank you for the reminder of that. And thank you to Marin County, specifically Jason Weber, Chief Jason Weber, and his partnerships and his willingness to help us out, because it's so key to be able to bring everybody in. And hopefully his folks are able to get something out of the day as well for that. But it's going to be interesting. And I think when we start seeing more of this at scale, start understanding how it potentially could have impacted the fire pathways, to see more slowing of fire returning or slowing of spread would be really interesting to see if that data correlates as we move forward with that. You know, really impressed about the way in Point Blue with the monitoring of mechanical vegetation management. Be interesting to see if you're probably already ahead of this on this one, to bring them into an area where we burned for those same types of studies. So that would be good data to collect. And then lastly, an appreciation for allowing the public to be so close and not be fearful of this. At some point, if we're going to be, you know, ripping off another 40 acres, which puts off quite a show, throwing an invite out to the media to see if they'd like to come and hang out close by as well. So we have the opportunity to be able to brief them on that. So, but overall, thank you very much for the work too. With that, we'll go to public comment.
Yeah, hey, Matt, I'll second your request to have that data presented. I think that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Great.
Yes, Larry Minikis, please.
You know, from a historical perspective, fires in the past, prescribed fires in the past, generally ended up in the paper with someone complaining about all the smoke, and that something needed to be done about it. And it's just really wonderful, the amount of education that's out there now. People seem to be aware of it. As I said earlier, it was great to see that big smoke cloud up there, and really no one panicking, no one complaining about it, which is fantastic. I also want to make a couple of other comments. I do want to commend staff and your partners for the successful prescribed burn. And this is a tangible step forward that is grounded in science, collaboration, and thoughtful planning. It reflects the vision of the BIFIT, reducing wildfire risk while restoring the natural biodiversity cycle that has evolved with fire. We know we're not going to get there overnight, but this is how we get there step by step. Prescribed fire, when it's done right like it was here, is one of the most effective tools we have to protect both communities and habitat. It reduces dangerous fuel loads, keeps invasive species in check, and restores our fire-adapted ecosystems. And with that, I want to thank you and look forward to more of this work getting done in the future.
There are no further speakers.
Great. Kevin, Sean, thank you very much for your presentation. Moving on to 9B, a fiscal year 26 engineering capital projects update. Director Anaya.
Good afternoon, President Sampson, board members, Alex Stein, Engineering Director. This evening with me is Zach Talbot, our Engineering Manager Design, who will be providing the presentation this evening. Before I pass it over to Zach, just wanted to kind of point out real quick that the presentation tonight is really geared more towards the core capital work that's done within the engineering department, focusing on the rehabilitation and reconstruction of our pipes, tanks, and pump stations, and really not getting too much into the other larger projects such as ARC and AMI and the ERP replacement. So with that, I'll pass it over to Zach.
Thank you, Alex. Let me just get the presentation up and running. Go. All right. Go. Thanks, Alex. Evening. Tonight, I'm excited to share our one-year outlook for our project portfolio that's going on right now in the engineering division. And so for the most part, we'll just be focusing on FY26 capital projects. As Alex mentioned, this is more of our core infrastructure projects. So I'll be talking about mostly distribution pipelines, distribution tanks, pump stations, and treatment plant improvement projects. And I'll be going through all the projects that are currently in design or about to kick off design with the new FY26 project budgets, as well as projects that are already in construction and are actively going on this summer. The image here to the right is a satellite imagery of Marin County, and the little stars are just where all the projects are located that I'll be talking about tonight. So as you can see, they're located all around the county. The one furthest up to the north is Castaic Pump Station in Sonoma County. The one all the way to the south is Paradise Drive Pipeline Replacement Project, and all the other ones are various pump station and tank projects. So with that, I'll kind of get into it. So I'll start with the projects that are currently in design. So this is an overview of our pipeline projects that will be going in design this fiscal year. As you can see, there's almost 40,000 feet of design work that has to be done with a fiscal year budget of $12 million. These projects are kind of put in chronological order in terms of when we're expecting design to be completed throughout the next fiscal year. So the first one at the top, the Canal Pipeline Replacement Project, we actually advertised today. And so the design is complete. Anticipated construction is to occur sometime in September of this year. And then as you go through the list, you can see that we've got it spread throughout the year, kind of loading it appropriately for our staff level and for our contractors. The largest project up on the board there is the Paradise Drive Pipeline Replacement Project. That is a fire flow program project that we take care of through our fire flow program. And then there's a couple projects there at the bottom that are kind of starred. That's the Miracle Mile Pipeline Replacement Project and the Ross Common. Both of these were kind of earmarked for construction in FY27. However, we do have programmatic budget to start the design this year, so we can kind of be ahead of the curve. And both those projects were brought to our attention from our operations, who we work closely with, and they kind of pointed out, hey, you know, if you got room in the budget, can you tackle some of these more problematic areas? And now that we do, we'll start the design and be ahead of the curve, if you will. So I'll just focus on two of the projects that are actively going right now in the design. The first is the Paradise Drive. So that's replacing roughly 11,000 linear feet of 1920s era cast iron pipe. That's pipe over 100 years old. It is leak prone and is undersized and fire flow deficient. That project is expected to be ready to go sometime after the new year, the new calendar year, that is. And this is an interesting project because it's not only is its size in terms of length of 11,000 feet, but this is actually a phase 2 project. Phase 1 was completed 5 or 6 years ago when they did the northern part of Paradise Drive. So when this project is completed, we would have replaced all the fire flow deficient pipe along the backside of the Tiburon Peninsula. The other project I'm highlighting here is the Canal District the Canal Pipeline Replacement Project. We're replacing 1950s era asbestos concrete pipe. This is a grant-funded project, so we're sharing the cost with the state, which is something to highlight, but also this is one of our more problematic areas in the San Rafael area because there's polybutylene plastic services in this area. So it's extremely leak-prone, and our crews have been out there over the decades constantly repairing this pipeline. So this project will kind of address a lot of the leak issues that we have in the canal area. So moving on to tanks, we've got two tank projects currently in design. The first is the Scenic Ave tank, which is a 20,000 gallon redwood tank located in the hills above Archie William High School in San Anselmo. And the other one is the Hind tanks, which is located in the hills above the Marin Yacht Club in San Rafael along San Pedro Road. Both these projects are expected to be designed completed over the next 6 months, and both will be going into construction here in this fiscal year. Again, I'll be kind of diving into both of these projects on this next slide. So the Hind Tanks project is significantly more costly in terms of fiscal dollars appropriated because we are actually going to be building a brand new tank site. This is an interesting project that's been in the works for, I think, almost 20 years. And so there's actually a land exchange agreement going on with a neighbor up there. And so what we're actually going to be doing is building a brand new tank site adjacent to our existing one, and doing a land swap with our neighbor. And so, as you can see, the hillside is quite steep and it's going to require a significant amount of civil work. This picture is on the left is showcasing a geotechnical boring. So that's a tracked boring rig. So we can get ground samples. So we can find out exactly where competent soil is to put our new tank pad. And this project will likely go into 2 phases, similar to Pine Mountain tanks. So phase 1 will be creating a whole new tank site with retaining walls and access roads. And then phase 2 would actually building the new tanks, all while the existing tanks are in service. And then once the new tanks are completed, we'll be able to transfer our service over to the new tanks, and then we'll be demolishing the existing redwood tanks. The project to the right is the Scenic Ave tank. It's a much smaller in terms of design scope. It's also a redwood tank, and between the Hind tanks and San Anselmo, this represents 3 out of the remaining 4 redwood tanks in our system. So the Scenic Ave tank is at the end of its useful life, and we've recently installed a new temporary tank with district crews because this is a single tank site, so it's really hard to replace an existing tank if there's only one in place. So you have to put a temporary tank there in order to continue service to our customers. And so once we've got that temporary tank completed, we'll be able to go into the advertisement of the replacement of this tank, and it'll be roughly the same size, 20,000 gallons, and we'll be installing a new bolted steel tank. I also would like to highlight both of these projects. We utilized our new on-call geotechnical consultants. They're both very useful for these projects because you have to determine what kind of ground we're putting these 2 new tanks on at the very beginning of all of our projects. So we were able to use both Miller Pacific and Wood Rogers on both of these projects to kind of get initial geotechnical reports. So that was very useful.
How big is the temporary tank?
For Scenic Ave, it's roughly almost half of the existing gallons. So it's like 8,000 gallons. And it's actually it's a HDP, high density polyethylene tank that will dechlor. And we've used those in the past when we've done tank replacement projects.
Zach, where's the last redwood tank remaining then?
Oh,
Madera Park.
Madera Park.
That's the last one, which is on the fiscal year 27 budget.
Great.
So in the next 2 years, we'll get all of our remaining redwood out of the system.
All right, switching gears to pump stations. We've got 3 pump station projects in design right now. The first one, Fairfax Manor, is actually technically complete, but we haven't gone to advertisement yet. We're waiting on construction easements, but that's the one that's in the hills above Fairfax, kind of adjacent to Fairfax Lumber. The second one is Castañeda Pump Station Rehabilitation Project, which I've spoken on in the past year. That's a transmission pump station that delivers water from the north from Sonoma County Water Agency. And the last one is the Tocoloma Pump Station, which is a raw water pump station that you can see it's located, that's on the image to the right. It's located adjacent to Nicasio Reservoir, and it actually takes raw water from Nicasio and pumps it over to San Geronimo Treatment Plant for treatment. So again, just highlighting the 2 of these 3 projects. The Fairfax Manor Pump Station is a typical distribution pump station that you'll find throughout the district. In terms of raw capacity, it's obviously, in terms of capacity, it's much smaller than Tocoloma or Castañeda because they're not transmission pump stations. They're distribution, and they're meant for small communities here throughout the district. So The large cost of this, a lot of it has to do with the topography that it's located on. It's on a hillside. It's going to require multiple retaining walls, a lot of civil work, and of course, we'll be installing a fire hardened structure. And I'd like to point out that with all these projects, from pipelines to tanks, we'll be increasing not only its reliability but its resiliency. So for these pump stations, for instance, there'll be seismically resistant structures, and we'll be installing more efficient pumps. So we're reducing PG&E costs as well as variable frequency drives, which will allow us to really control how much flow and operational efficiency we have.
Is it going to be crush proof too?
I don't know. This one
might be.
It's going to be as crush proof as possible. It'll have.
Yeah. So in terms of so the Tokoloma is a great one to highlight in terms of increasing resiliency and operational efficiency. So I'm highlighting the electrical building here in this image. The majority of the funds is going to replace the electrical building. The pumps themselves are in good condition. Only 2 of the 6 are going to require reconditioning, which happens periodically throughout a pump's life. It's kind of like rebuilding a motor on an engine. You know, you could always go back and rebuild it because as long as there's enough metal there. But the electrical building itself is from the 1960s, and it's no longer up to modern standards. What we're really interested in doing and what the project is going to accomplish is installing variable frequency drives. So that's really going to allow us to control flow from Nicasio to San Geronimo treatment plant. And that does a couple things for us. One, it allows us to really dial in exactly how much water is coming, because right now when you turn on a pump, you just get full speed and you get nothing but full speed. When you put in those variable frequency drives, you could really dial down the speed down to 60%, if you will, and control how much flow is going. And that's not only important when we're only running off Nicasio, but if we want to increase the capacity at San Geronimo treatment plant in terms of going over what Tokoloma can do, we could actually blend with Kent Reservoir. And blending becomes really difficult, especially in the summer months, because you've got 2 different temperatures of water. Nicasio and Kent Reservoir are very difficult to blend together unless you've got precise control. And the variable frequency drives that we'll be installing here at Tokoloma will allow our operators to have that type of control.
What's the horsepower?
There are 5 400 horsepower vertical turbine pumps and 1 200 horsepower vertical turbine pump.
So big dogs.
Yeah.
In our business.
Yes.
So that'll give you a soft start too, huh?
Yeah, variable frequency is the next step from soft start. So when you start it up, it'll slowly ramp up, just like a soft start.
So it may well pay for itself pretty quickly on not having the inrush charges.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, one of the components of the design report is we'll be getting an estimated cost of payoff just on inrush itself, because we will no longer be charged for those inrush costs.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to our treatment plant projects currently in design. We're replacing existing valves that are part of the treatment plant process. So both at San Geronimo treatment plant and and Bontempi treatment plant, we're replacing valves that are critical to the treatment process. These valves are at the end of their useful life and leaking. And these valves are, since we're buying 6 at San Geronimo and 4 at Bontempi, you can't just go buy one off the shelf. You have to go out and solicit specialty valve manufacturers and get all the right equipment. So these are both actuated valves, if you will. So both of them use pneumatic air, so they're air driven, and that's how they modulate opening and closing them. And then they're actually called electropneumatic valves, so you could actually control exactly how far open these valves open and close. You can modulate flow. And so actually earlier tonight on the consent calendar, we approved the purchase of the 6 valves at San Geronimo treatment plant. And these valves, again, they're not off the shelves. They take up to 6 months to deliver. And so you have to be very strategic when these projects go out. So we already have the 4 valves at Bontempi. So this project will go this winter. So we'll actually have to take Bontempi treatment plant offline, which is a great time to do it because demand is low. We'll replace the valves, and then we'll likely get the San Geronimo valves sometime in January. And we'll likely wait until the next low demand season to install them, because we don't want to be caught in the spring still trying to replace these as demand goes up. And so it's a good idea for us to offset these by fiscal year or by winters.
What's wrong with the old ones?
They're original and they're leaking, and so that's not ideal in the treatment plant process. This last slide that's in design, these are just some of the other various projects that come up that are not part of, the distribution system, if you will. So we're doing a landslide repair in Sausalito that's causing some site water runoff issues going down the hillside. We're looking into installing electrical vehicle charging stations at all of our sites. So here at the admin building, across the street in the operations yard, and then as well as up at Sky Oak. So kind of we're in this early steps of this one right now. So we're looking to see actually how much capacity we have, and if we could, and these are for our fleet vehicles, and we're looking to see how many fleet vehicles we could actually charge at one time to keep up with the state standards and requirements.
High speed or regular?
Level 2. Level 3 is not practical for the amount of vehicles we would have to charge. But level 2, we've been told just based off of like high level from our electrical consultant that that's most likely what we would do. And that's what most municipalities or school districts or counties around the Bay Area are doing, are level 2. We might put in one level 3 for, say, an operational vehicle across the street. However, they really pull a lot of amperage, so much so that we might be stuck arguing with PG&E for a while to figure out how we're going to get that here. So level 2 is right now is the plan. And then the last one is North Marin. So NML is North Marin Line Booster. Those are the booster pump stations that pumps the treated water from San Geronimo Treatment Plant up over White's Hill to the Smith Saddle transfer tanks, and that goes out into the system. There's, I believe, 7 large vertical turbine pumps there, and we earmarked some money this year to replace one of the pumps or rehabilitate it, and so that'll be going out this year. So we have to purchase one of those as well. All right, now shifting gears to projects that are actively in construction this summer. So these are the 3 projects that went out to advertise and award this last spring, and these are all projects that are currently going on throughout the district. So you have the Park Road Pipeline Replacement Project in Fairfax, Bridgeway Pipeline Replacement Project in Sausalito, and the largest of the 3 is the Glenwood Pipeline Replacement Project. And again, that's a fire flow program project. All these are increasing the system's reliability and resiliency to seismic events and reducing the probability of leaks. Something that I want to point out on all of our pipeline projects, we're not just replacing the main line. When we set our limits, we're replacing every aspect of our infrastructure that's in the ground. So it's the main line, it's the valves, it's all the fittings, it's all the hydrant runs and the laterals to everyone's homes. So there's a lot of work that goes into installing all this. And this picture here to the right is showing a hydrant run going over to a curb. So you could kind of see the red curb there. And this is just a typical kind of open trench picture that you would see on any pipeline replacement project. And so what this is doing is it's increasing the reliability to all the hydrants in this neighborhood. And we do that on all of our projects, regardless if it's a fire flow project or just a capital project. And so this was actually taken just last week, and it's at the corner of Loch Navarre Road and Loxley Lane. We have got one storage tank project in construction this construction season, and it's a big one. It's the Pine Mountain Tanks tunnel tanks, valued at over $23 million. I know it's been brought to the board many times, but it is something to showcase because it's a multi-year project, and so every year we're going to be making progress on it. We actually got the start early this year because there was no northern spotted owls in the area. So Azul, our contractor, is already out there, and they've begun the work on constructing the new tank pad, system piping, and all the storm drain. And then the last one is our treatment plant project in construction. Again, this is a fire hardening project and also increasing reliability. We're replacing a 21-year-old leaking roof with a new Class A fire rated roof on top of San Geronimo treatment plant. Project was awarded in April, and we'll have the ability to add solar panels in the future if we decide to go down that path. And the project is expected to be completed later this summer prior to the rainy season. Okay, In summary, those are all the capital projects, both in design and in construction this year. So at the end of the fiscal year 26, we'll be working on all the core aspects as I discussed earlier. So 9.2 miles of pipeline. We're doing 3 storage tank projects, 3 pump station projects, 3 treatment plant projects. And all of them are going to be focusing on reliability, resiliency, and operational efficiency. All the project milestones that I kind of went over are going to be delivered through a strategic mix of both in-house design and consultants. Thank you.
Zach, thank you very much, Alex, for the presentation. Appreciate it. Really good update. I'd like to go ahead and solicit board member comments.
No comments. Thank you for the update.
Director Russell.
Well, it's a little exciting about Paradise. And now you're getting closer to home. The other one was kind of down the road from us, but this one looks like it's right in front. Yeah, that pipeline is getting a little aged for sure. So it'll be good to get rid of that one. But tough traffic like always on Paradise. Okay, thanks.
Director Smith.
Yeah, thanks for the report. I think it's important to note that this is maybe the unsung, but some of the most important work that we've done over the last couple of years, and a direct result of adjusting our fees and our rates in order to help maintain this district. And I've yet to hear a comment from a board member, anyone who said that these projects were frivolous in any way, but the opposite, quite necessary and important. So thank you, team, for stepping up and doing this, and the county will appreciate it. May not articulate that, but they will. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah, and Zach and Alex, thank you very much just for the reminder of how much work it takes every day just to keep the water running outside of the other things we do. So it's good to see. And also to somewhat piggyback on Director Smith's comments, it's really good to see us spending the public's money or ratepayers' money responsibly. We asked them for additional rates for a reason. We identified issues, and now we're starting to tackle them. So it's really good to see. And it's hard not to comment more on the Pine Mountain tunnel tanks. I mean, this is like a huge project that nobody sees driving by all day long. And so I really recommend for the folks that are out there on the watershed or near Sky Oaks to please go take a look at it. It's really impressive to see. So nice work overall. And then finally, it's great to see the wildfire risk considered, earthquake risk considered, all things resiliency considered as we're responsibly moving forward. So we're not leaving the next generation with problems to solve that we can solve now. So great work all around. And with that, we'll go ahead and take public comment.
Mr. Phil Sauter, please.
Thanks for the presentation. It's really good to see our aging infrastructure getting some much needed investment. I was really interested in the planned replacement of aging pipelines, as a couple of friends who live in the Woodacre Flats told me that on the afternoon of July 5th, a pipe burst at the intersection of Central Avenue and Park Street and sent a 30-foot fountain of water up into the air. I understand the repair was done in a couple of hours, and I'm very grateful to the crew that responded so quickly. From this evening's presentation, it looks like we're planning to replace 9 miles of pipeline in 2026, or about 1% of our existing pipeline. I'm not sure if that's because 1% a year is a reasonable target for a water district with our infrastructure, or if it's because of budget issues. If it's a budget problem, I'd like to refer back to my earlier comments this evening and suggest that some fairly modest changes to our residential tier structure could generate $5 to $12 million in additional revenue annually. Not only could those tier adjustments result in less waste of potable water, but they could also contribute to a speed up in infrastructure upgrades, as Director Smith said. I sure don't have the knowledge and expertise of staff in deciding how vulnerable we are to aging pipe blowouts. But it does seem that an annual replacement rate of 2 or 3% could avoid more problems than limiting ourselves to 1%. I also did some thinking about why that pipeline chose July 5th to rupture. And I will say that the day before, July 4th, Woodacre had its traditional 4th of July parade, which was a great parade as usual. But what made it unusual was I've never seen so many people from outside the valley come to see that parade. And there were hundreds of cars parked along the road and traveling over that intersection. I don't know if that jiggled the pipeline more than usual, but it was an unusual event that happened the day before. So I'll just throw that out there. Thank you.
There are no further speakers.
Great. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 10, future board and committee meetings.
Thank you. The only internal meeting this month is the planning committee meeting next Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning. In terms of external meetings this month, the only one is the Tamales Bay Foundation tomorrow at 3 p.m. All the remaining meetings for internal and external are next month, and they're listed in the packet.
Great. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.